Non-barking dogs. I'm not here talking about the fact that much of my life has been free of dogs yapping away, particularly through the night. The worst periods for that were when Sarah and I were in Nepal, and in the village the dogs would go around howling very often in the night and keep us awake. But what I'm talking about is a device or stratagem for acquiring knowledge, which is described by Conan Doyle in his short story about Sherlock Holmes and the dog that did not bark in the night. The story, you'll recall perhaps, was about the theft of a prime racehorse, and Sherlock Holmes was investigating, and he questioned everyone, and the boy who was looking after the horse reported that nothing unusual had happened in the night when the horse was stolen, and from this Sherlock Holmes deduced that the horse must have been stolen by someone which the horse knew very well, and also the dog that was in the stable with the horse knew very well, because it didn't bark. And so this is about absences, and it's something which I've treasured in my analysis of British society and other societies, and that is that many of the most interesting things about our society are not what people do, but what they don't do, or about the silences. You can gain a huge amount of information about a society from absences. It's difficult to do, and that's why many people don't bother. They look at the things that happened or the things that are said, and they don't pay much attention to absences, because in order to detect an absence, you have to do what Sherlock Holmes did, which is to build up a model of what normally happens, like dogs normally bark at strangers, and then notice that it didn't happen. And the same is true if you study societies and civilizations and peoples. You have to build up a model of what you would expect from other studies and elsewhere in a comparative way, and then you look at the particular instance and see that it doesn't happen. And to give you an example, not many people in England would think much about the fact that we don't have ancestor cults or veneration in English society. That's just normal, why should we worship our ancestors? But when an anthropologist went to China and asked them, why do you have ancestor veneration? They quite rightly said, well, the question isn't that, the question is why you don't. It's your absence. And that applies to very many things in English and Western society, that they are so obvious, accepted, ingrained. And so one could name almost every feature. For example, many aspects of ritual life in other societies, the worship of many little godlings in the countryside or whatever. We don't have that. Or the normal accepted view that old people are wise and to be listened to and respected, which is normal in China and Japan and a number of countries throughout the world. We don't have that. So you then are set all sorts of curious, interesting things about your own society. You can do it in reverse, of course. You can go to another society and find that they don't drive on the left-hand side of the road, or they don't drive at or all sorts of things that are absent, which you accept as normal. So it's a technique which you have to explicitly build up, of building a model of normal expected human behavior reactions from as many different societies as possible. And then when you look at a particular one, you can see the gaps the silences, the things they don't talk about, and the things that they just take for granted.